taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I roto, tu taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, honi e, hui e, tai e.
Nice.
Welcome everybody to our council meeting today, and we have no apologies, so great to have a full house everybody. And do we have any conflicts of interest? No. And just to note of course that we are being live streamed and recorded. No members of the public here to speak today, so just one announcement from myself. Just wanting to let everybody know that item 6 on today's open agenda, the adoption of the long-term plan 2021 to 31 consultation document, will be addressed at a reconvened council meeting on Friday the 9th of April 2021, being tomorrow, in the large exhibition hall at the War Memorial Centre. The deferment is due to the auditor's opinion not being available until tomorrow morning. And I would just like to invite Councillor Crystal, who would also like to make an announcement.
We would just like to acknowledge the passing of Richard Atkins. Richard was a stalwart of the Taradale community and known as the godfather of Taradale Cricket Club. He was a member for over 70 years, and Richard was a founding committee member of the Taradale Sports Association, which saw the joining of clubs to build a multi-sport pavilion in Taradale Park in 1985. But he'll be most remembered as a mentor and coach for hundreds, probably thousands of young cricketers at the Taradale Cricket Club. They had great respect for Richard. He was firm but fair, and with a twinkle in his eye, was always ready with a joke. The children loved him, as did us mums during hours of watching on the boundary. Our sympathy goes out to Dot, his wife, and the rest of Richard's family. A great innings finally comes to an end.
Nice. Thank you, Councillor Crystal. Are there any minor matters not on the agenda? Announcements by management?
Nothing, Your Worship.
And there are no minutes to confirm, so we will head straight into our first agenda item, being Consultation, Revenue and Financing Policy, and we have Adele Henderson, Director of Corporate Services, and Gary Brzezinski, whose name I always get tongue-tied on, to speak to the paper. So welcome, both of you.
And thank you, and through the Mayor. Obviously we've recently undertaken our consultation around the revenue and financing policy. When we were undertaking that consultation, we hadn't fully completed our preparation for the long-term plan. As part of our preparation for the long-term plan, we're proposing that the housing component is actually loan funded, and the current policy doesn't provide for that. So what we're proposing is effectively a change to the policy for consultation that will allow us to provide for loan funding of the housing activity until such time that Council goes out for further consultation around the future of our social housing portfolio. So this is a short-term measure to ensure it is funded in the short term.
Thank you, Adele. Open up for any questions. Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that this is specifically to this housing loan issue, or is it a more general policy that you're wanting to introduce?
Through the Mayor. So this particular policy does provide for more. So at the moment, the policy is quite firm around actually providing any loan funding of operating costs. So we are looking to extend that. But any request to look at loan funding of general operating costs would be a decision of Council at a point in time, as what we're proposing here in front of Council, that the housing portfolio is also loan funded in the short term. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Just for the benefit of those watching, could you let us know what short term is?
And through the Mayor. Obviously the timing and the consultation of the process will be the thing that will determine how long this loan funding will actually be undertaken for. As I understand, the consultation is likely to be undertaken at the end of this year, and then there'll be a process on the back of that for the decisions of council, any transition to any new arrangement, should that be the case, or any other requirements as to how it might be funded going forward.
So this could be resolved in a year?
1 to 2 years as
1
we
to
have.
2 years, great, thank you.
If there's no further questions, I will just read out the recommendation before us. Is A, note the revenue and financing policy will now allow for loan funding of operating costs for approved council activities. B, approve the inclusion of loan funding for operational expenditure and general rates funding for capital expenditure for council housing activities. C, approve the draft revenue and financing policy for consultation. And D, approve the consultation plan for the revenue and financing policy. If I could have a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Mawson and Councillor Tapani. Did you wish to speak to that, Councillor Mawson? Councillor Tapani?
I'm good, thank you.
Open up in case any other councillors wish to speak to that. No, that being the case, I will now put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Moving on to, and I think we'll probably have the same reporting officers pretty much the whole agenda today. So our next agenda item is consultation of the rating policy.
Do you want me to kick it off? Okay. Purpose of this report today is just to clarify a few items within the rating policy itself for councillors, just to confirm that was the intention of it. There's also some recommendations just around the phasing schedule itself, which need to be highlighted, and Adele will discuss that. So. And part of the reason for this review is that whenever you have significant policy changes that do occur, sometimes a few things are missed, so it doesn't hurt just to clarify these things as a matter of process. Those items have been highlighted in the report. The key ones really are that the unconnected fire protection rate for other rating units remains at 50%. That wasn't covered in the original resolution, so just to highlight that for you. The stormwater rate for commercial and industrial property remains at 250%, although the general rate for commercial and industrial property is at 260%. And the rural residential stormwater rate remains at 100% compared to the general rate of 90%. And also to confirm that stormwater is not being phased. So would you like to discuss?
And just through the Mayor, so what we've just noted in this particular policy itself is the transitional arrangements that were agreed through the revenue and financing policy, which actually has a flow impact into the rating policy around that phasing of the introduction of those new rates. So the table that's provided in the paper actually articulates what they would look like and as an example to the community as part of our consultation.
Thank you very much. Just a question, Gary, from myself initially. With regards to the stormwater rates, where we now have a misalignment between the revenue and finance policy and the rating policy, would it normally be best practice to have those aligned?
There is no real best practice around this. It's really what is the best fit for each council. And so there is the opportunity, once consultation is finished on these documents, for council to address that. And if you'd like to realign it, you can. So the variances aren't significant. And so it's not as great an issue. If it was quite a variance between the figures, then it's something we'd certainly say that best practice would be to have those more closely aligned.
Thank you. Open up for any questions from councillors. Councillor Tapani.
Just a supplementary to yours, thank you, Your Worship, and that's the timeframes you referred to. When you say we can come back and make necessary changes in time, are there any restrictions on those times? Do we have a set period before we can reconsider, etc.?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So that's a really good question. So each of the policies, barring one that we're discussing today, will be going to consultation after this, which will be from the 12th of April to the 12th of May. Then beyond that point, on the 1st and 3rd of June at the moment, we've got hearings followed by deliberation. So that will be the first instance at which Council can make a decision on this. Thereafter, would have to follow the consultative process again to make any changes.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Gary. It talks about three of our, so it talks about commercial and industrial, residential and rural residential. I was wondering what the stormwater rate was for rural. Yeah.
Sorry. Through you, Madam Mayor. For rural properties, there is no stormwater.
Oh, there we go.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a question around the stormwater rate for rural residential. I know we created that classification at the end of our discussions. So the issue or the concern on my mind is that many rural residential properties actually collect their stormwater, so therefore don't discharge to the council's networks or systems. Are we taking that into account?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Originally, when we put together the new sets of rates around this, we considered it at 100% because there was no differentiation between residential and what's now the rural residential. So that hasn't been taken into account with these figures, and so as with the rest of the figures there is still opportunity for further debate and decision making around that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll therefore ask for a mover and seconder, please, around the consultation rating policy. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Wright. Did you wish to speak to the recommendation, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I was just actually going to reiterate what Gary had said, that, you know, the first two papers that we've looked at relate to draft revenue and financing and draft rating policy. So these are very much the draft going out for consultation, and our normal process of consultation, submission, deliberation will take place, and alteration and modification can take place at this time. So I'm happy to support the draft policy, and that's sufficient.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No, I will therefore put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Next up, we have review of the rates, remission and postponement on Maori freehold land.
All right. So the purpose of this report is just to review the policy, which we need to do at least once every 3 years. With regards to this review, no changes are recommended at this time. But it's worth noting that if the local government rating of Whenua Maori Amendment Bill is passed, then it will impact on the Local Government Rating Act from the 1st of July. And so whilst the impact for council is minor, the impact for Maori freehold land and council will actually be positive. And so until the bill is passed, there's not a lot we can really do here. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
One burning question that's in it. What portion of land within the Napier district would be considered Maori freehold land? Rough percentage, if you have it.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have those figures, but it is very low. And I have looked through the amendment bill itself, and there's at the moment 2 smaller parcels of land that we've identified that would be positively impacted by this amendment. But generally, Napier has very small exposure relative to some other councils.
Thank you.
There's no further questions. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Crystal, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Did you wish to speak to the motion? No?
No, I'm happy.
Good. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Number 4, consultation on the rates remission policy.
It's one of those days.
Don't move.
So the rates for remission policy was last reviewed and adopted in February this year. So the current review has come about to clarify delegation for the refuse and recycling remission and to remove a redundant provision. So under the proposal, sign-off for the refuse and recycling remission will be delegated to the Chief Financial Officer. So it's just providing a little bit of clarity there on who is responsible. The remission for residential land in commercial or industrial areas is marked for removal due to the fact that we rate the property based on its use, not zoning. So a residential property is already rated as residential within those areas, so the provision is superfluous. And as with the other documents, consultation will follow the same approach, with consultation opening on the 12th of April, closing on the 12th of May, with deliberation and hearings on the 1st and 3rd of June. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's all pretty straightforward. But any questions? No. So a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Price, Councillor Crown. Thank you. Did either of you wish to speak to that? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
And next up, the draft financial contributions policy.
Thank you.
Welcome, Paulina and Aretha.
Thank you. So the purpose of this paper, through you, the mayor, the purpose of this paper is to adopt the financial contribution policy. We are required to have a financial contributions policy under the Local Government Act, and we are required to review that every 3 years. So the main changes that we are proposing with the policy, and this has been debated with you and through some of the workshop, is that we're gonna only charge financial contributions rather than development contribution and financial contribution as per the current policy. And we're also adding some strategic outcomes to the policy, which is to, with the intention of revitalize the CBD. And this is to provide exemptions to the financial contribution charged to residential development within the inner city core and make commercial centers as well, to promote residential living, inner city living in our CBD, and in close proximity to big commercial centers. So this ties up with our objectives of the district plan and the overarching LTP objective outcome of having a vibrant CBD. So those are the key changes proposed in the policy.
Thank you very much, Paulina. And this will be going out for the same consultation period as the other draft policies that we have before us today. So I'll open up for questions from councillors. Councillor Bogue.
Just a question through you, Madam Mayor. I understand that this is done every 3 years. In fact, I think the other policies we looked at also, but do they usually go out with a long-term plan? I don't recall that, but I may have omitted to remember. Is it standard practice for these to go out with a long-term plan consultation?
Through you, the mayor, yes, it is a standard practice. However, it can be reviewed outside of the 3-year period. Yeah.
So did it do that last time?
No, we did it not. Yeah. we didn't do it together with a long-term plan. We did it separate, but okay. It makes sense to go out with a long-term plan yeah, it's a nice package to have it together, but you don't have to do it every 3 years. You can do it in between as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Paulina, I was just wondering if you could explain what the benefit is, what it actually means if we are only going to be collecting financial contributions rather than development and financial. If you could just give us a little bit more information on that.
There is an advantage at the moment because it is clearer to the developers. At the moment, we have a different standard with the charging development contributions for the commercial activities, as well as financial contributions under the district plan for residential and commercial activities, and that has created confusion in the way that we calculate this amount. So through the review of the current policy, it was recommended to have to charge only financial contribution financial contributions under the district plan. It is clear, and despite that there are some changes to the amount collected, the changes are not significant that warrant any further review. The financial contribution will be the clearest and simplest way to charge in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Through the Mayor, just wondering for the public if you could explain the exemptions that we're looking to put in the commercial centres and what we're hoping to achieve with those.
Yes, absolutely. There are a couple of exemptions. One is related to the CBD, so the CBD core, Art Deco core. That is one of the highest exemptions for conversion of offices into residential building. So the rationale for that is saying the use of infrastructure or due to this change does not really require extensive new investment on water or transportation. So therefore, the financial contribution can be substantially reduced to an 80% of the current contribution charge. For anything outside of the area, more in the CBD fringe, which is an extended area, is more like a strategic approach. We're trying to promote intensive development around the CBD, just to promote walkability, to increase pedestrian count, and to activate the retail core after 5, etc. All the benefits that come with having a compact city. That one is a 50% reduction for multi-units or apartments in that area CBD fringe. We're also promoting intensification around the commercial centers with the same rationale. So along Taradale, Onekawa shop, Mariwa shop, all the areas that are actually at a pedestrian that has close enough so you can walk to those centers, we are promoting intensification. This is also aligned with the National Policy Statement for Urban Development. The central government is actually saying to council, you need to provide for intensification within your serviceable areas, so your areas where you have all your services accessible. So we are promoting a 3-tier approach for those. So any 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments in those specified areas within the map would get a discount. So 50% for 1-bedroom, 33% for 2-bedroom, and no discount for 3-bedroom because it's considered the same as a one standard unit. So multi-unit development is what we're trying to achieve, to use the land and intensify those areas more efficiently, to use those areas more efficiently.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions? No? Well, I'm happy to move the motion from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crown. Just to make the comment that in terms of the exemptions that we are proposing in this draft policy, this is something particularly in our inner city commercial zone that I've been very, very keen to support for quite some time, to allow more development within our city centre and bring about some of that city vibrancy. That would be fantastic. And I think the fact that we've extended this out to the fringe commercial zone, Taradale suburban commercial zone, and then also the exemptions around the multi-unit residential development and these other identified areas is going to be of great assistance as we work through the housing issues that we're currently facing here. So I'm fully supportive of the proposed exemptions and looking forward to receiving feedback from our community. So, Councillor Crown.
Very well formed comment, nothing else to add.
Yeah. I will just open to any other councillor that would like to. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd just reiterate some of the things you've said, but I think it's important that we again emphasise that this is a draft policy and congratulate the team on what they have put in the effort that has gone into developing this draft policy. And I think from my perspective, it will be really interesting to see what the reaction is from developers and the community to these proposals and as the Mayor has said, an opportunity to revitalise or vitalise some of those areas, but it will be interesting to see how those people will actually react to that policy, draft policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. If there's no other councillors wishing to speak, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And moving forward, as I said earlier, to agenda item 7, which is an amendment to the 2021 Council Committee meeting schedule. And welcome Helen, Team Leader Governance, to briefly talk to the paper.
Kia ora koutou katoa. As for those of you who follow council meetings assiduously will have seen, we will be bringing this report regularly to council simply to update as required for new events coming into our calendar. So you have today the 2 additional events, which are a hearings for a dog hearing, and the additional dates required for the submissions and hearings in relation to the policies that we're consulting on for the finance, revenue and financing policy and the development contributions policy.
Any questions from councillors? No? So can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan and Councillor McGrath. Do either of you wish to comment? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. That brings us to the conclusion of our open agenda today. And can I have a mover and seconder to move into public excluded? Oh, everyone's put their hand up. Councillor Bogue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Tapani, 26 minutes.